It has been almost 2 years since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and the region that has been hit hardest by this war is Europe. In reality, Russia's fight is not only with Ukraine, but with an entire bloc we call the West. When Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, instead of attacking Russia openly in response, these Western countries decided to stay back and fight the war. Because Russia is a nuclear superpower, and it would be very expensive to take a direct hit from it, Western countries started supplying Ukraine with billions of dollars worth of weapons to fight against Russia. And on the other hand, they started imposing sanctions on Russian banks, companies, and people. Western countries thought that through these sanctions they would force Russia to withdraw from the war in Ukraine. But perhaps they forgot that Russia has a weapon with which it can collapse the whole of Europe, and especially Germany, the largest economy in Europe, and that weapon is gas pipelines. The entire Europe meets 25% of its energy needs from gas, and 50% of the gas supply of the entire Europe comes from only one country, and that is Russia. Germany is the largest buyer of Russian gas and oil in Europe. When the EU started imposing sanctions on Russia, Germany cut off all trade with Russia except for gas and oil supplies. And this is because, as of April 2022, Germany accounted for 55% of its gas and 35% of its oil imports. Germany knew full well that if it stopped buying gas and oil from Russia immediately, its economy would collapse within months. And not only that, but after the Ukraine war, Germany has been paying Russia 220 million euros per day for gas. This payment is much more than the financial aid that Germany was giving to Ukraine. So if seen, Germany was indirectly funding Russia to fight against Ukraine. But why is the world's fourth largest economy so dependent on Russia to meet its energy requirements? And why is this gas so important for Europe, while the future is for electric things? And finally, what is the effect of Russia's reaction on Europe and Germany? And what will be the end of all this? Let's know the answers to all these questions in this video. Actually, Germany does not have a lot of energy resources. Neither is it sunny enough to install solar plants, nor is it windy enough to install wind power plants. Germany has the 7th largest coal reserves in the world, and today, 30% of Germany's electricity is generated from coal. It was because of this coal that Germany prospered after World War II and began the journey of industrialization. In the 1950s, Germany was experiencing a great economic recovery. At the same time, the whole world was going through a huge food crisis. The land had become so infertile that it seemed difficult to meet the food shortage without the intervention of science. At that time, predictions were being made that if this problem was not solved, more than half of the world would die of hunger in the next 30 years. Meanwhile, to meet food shortages, German scientist Fritz Haber discovered ammonia, a compound that could be used as a fertilizer to increase agricultural production. With the same fertilizer, farmers began to grow 4 times more food on the same old land, and as a result, the world's population increased 4 times in just a few years. To make this fertilizer, natural gas is needed. Similarly, Germany's steel industry was also dominated by the whole world at that time. But to increase the production of these two things, Germany needed more energy resources. At the same time, in 1953, Siberia large reserves of natural gas were discovered in the Soviet Union, and the Soviet government began building pipelines to transport this gas to Soviet cities. This work was completed within a few years, but outside the Soviet Union there was a huge demand for this gas, and the biggest customer of this gas was Europe. Now the problem was that a lot of investment was needed to bring these pipelines to Europe. Then in 1969, a chancellor of West Germany named Willy Brandt came to power in Germany, who introduced a new foreign policy called Ostpolitik, which was aimed at the Soviet Union and Germany bringing each other closer. As part of this policy, West Germany and the Soviet Union signed an energy deal according to which the Soviet Union would supply West Germany with natural gas, and in return, West Germany would supply the Soviet Union with high-quality steel for the construction of these pipelines for a period of 20 years. To understand the deal and its importance, it is important to understand why natural gas is so different from other energy resources. In fact, natural gas, coal, and oil are the world's 3 largest energy resources that power the entire world and industry. But just as coal and oil can be shipped anywhere in the world by ships, natural gas cannot be sent without pipelines. Sending it to other places and making these pipelines is very expensive, long and difficult work. That is why gas projects are 20 to 30 years long. So until 1980, the Soviet Union laid these gas pipelines to Europe. And then by 1990, the Soviet Union was supplying 40% of its gas to Germany. Then in 1991, the Soviet Union broke up, and now Russia's main gas pipelines were passing through Ukraine to Europe, which meant that Russia no longer had control over these pipelines and gas. To cater to this problem, Russia started laying new pipelines. By 1999, Russia laid another pipeline that went through Belarus to Germany. And then in 2005, these two countries started building another pipeline which went through the Baltic Sea to Germany. The pipelines are called the Nord Stream, and it was these pipelines that made Germany heavily dependent on Russia. So now Russia's gas was reaching Europe and Germany through these three routes. Trade was going great. Europe was getting gas in large quantities easily, and Russia was getting good money. Then in 2008, Russia and Ukraine had a disagreement over price, and Russia cut off gas pipelines passing through Ukraine for 20 days. And as a result, gas supply to many European countries was stopped, and in Poland, 11 people froze to death due to the lack of gas, which made it clear that Russia was now controlling the whole of Europe through this gas flow. Then in 2014, when Russia invaded eastern Ukraine and occupied Crimea, the whole of Europe imposed sanctions on Russia. And many countries started looking at Russia's alternatives for gas and oil this time. But Germany still prefers Russian gas. Instead, he started buying more gas from Russia, and the cycle continued. And then finally in September 2022, Russia shut down all gas pipelines to Germany and Europe. And as a result, there was a panic in Germany, and energy prices jumped in Germany due to gas shortages. And when the price of energy goes up, the price of everything goes up. Inflation in Germany is currently the highest it has been in 50 years. People have taken to the streets and are demanding that Germany remain neutral in the Russia-Ukraine war, because the biggest cost of this war is being paid by Germany and the whole of Europe. Now the question must be coming to your mind that why Germany is so dependent on Russia? There will be an alternative to Germany. Now if we talk about Germany's coal reserves, the problem is that coal is the most polluting energy source of all fossil fuels. And so in 2019, under pressure from the whole world, Germany signed an agreement to shut down all its coal plants in the next 10 years, thus rendering the one resource that Germany is rich in useless. Similarly, if we look for options outside of Germany, Europe's largest natural gas reserves are located in the Netherlands, but these reserves are also going to close in 2023. And the reason for this is that due to continuous drilling for gas, the topsoil of this gas field is shrinking, and as a result, low-intensity earthquakes have started occurring in the entire area, which has spread a lot of fear in the local community. To address this issue, the Dutch government took a decision in 2014 that they will completely end extraction from this gas field by 2028, and thus Europe's largest gas reserves will be useless after a few years. Similarly, natural gas comes to Europe from Algeria and Libya, but it only goes to Italy and Spain. The last option that remains with Germany is LNG, also known as liquefied natural gas. LNG is actually such a gas which can be cooled and converted into liquid form and sent anywhere in the world in tankers. But the only problem is that special terminals have to be installed for this, and they are very expensive. Suppose Germany plans to import gas from Qatar, then firstly, this gas will be very expensive, and secondly, these terminals will take at least 5 years to complete. So in the short term, Germany has no other alternative and is badly screwed. Now on the other hand, if you look at Russia, it has also suffered a lot from the closure of this pipeline. The billions of dollars that were coming from Europe and especially Germany have now completely stopped. And now Europe's alternative is only India and China. But these two countries are dealing with gas at half the price of Europe, and it will take some time to deliver the pipelines to these two countries. Similarly, in the long term, this crisis may become more severe for Russia, because now Europe is working very fast on alternative energy sources. And as Europe shifts to alternative energy sources, Russia's leverage on Europe will decrease, and the plan of Russia that it will end the support of Ukraine by pressurizing Europe in this way is now lagging. On the other hand, another debate is going on very loudly in Europe, and that is about the role of the United States. According to many European think tanks, the United States has been using Europe as a proxy for the past 100 years to achieve its goals in Asia and the Middle East. And Europe has to bear the loss, whether it is world wars, war on terror, or the recent Russia-Ukraine war. America is so far from the rest of the world that no army has reached it yet in any war. After the kind of missiles that North Korea is making now, America has also become fully vulnerable. So America is always safe in all these scenarios, and even in the case of an economic war, America has its own natural gas and oil reserves, and that is why it is at peace. And on the other hand, Europe has to bear the burden of its decisions. In the end, if we come to the latest situation of Russia-Ukraine war, then unfortunately Russia could not execute its plan 100%, and it has faced failure on many fronts. And this is very dangerous for all of us because Putin cannot afford to lose the Ukraine war. In case of defeat in the Ukraine war, he will be removed from the presidency. And there are already such talks in Russia because this war has damaged Russia a lot economically. And the locals are very tensed about the whole thing. So no one knows whether Russia will take any extreme step in the future. The next 5 to 6 months are very important, and this will decide which bloc the world power is going to now. Be sure to give your opinion on this whole discussion in the comments below. We use these sources for this video,